So today, आज हम ये डिस्कस कर रहे हैं. So let's start with some ideas that we're gonna discuss today. And okay, let's from where should we start? Okay, let's start with the idea of the state, right? So the state idea has been changing. In the ancient times, it is more with related to community, and in the medieval times, the state was related to church. In the modern state is a sovereign entity. Sovereign means it has a supreme power to govern all the decisions in the social institutions. It has a lot of impact on our lives. And the modern state is thought to be a secular state. Means it has nothing to do with the church. Right? It is separated from the church. These are different, like the different times. Like if you see the advent of modernity in Europe, the Reformation, and then there was Renaissance, right? These things were there. So Reformation was there, Renaissance is there, discovery of a new world, intercontinental trade, scientific discoveries, industrial revolution, and new working class. So the different things here, if you talk about it, let's see. The Renaissance is the revival of the classical literature art. And it is like the revolution of thought, revolution of ideas. New ideas came into existence, new revolutionary ideas. Revolutionary doesn't mean that you do a revolution, but you got the point. Uh, the rise of humanist thought, humanism as a concept, right? Liberalism, ideas of liberty, justice, with human affairs, and these were the starting of foundation of human rights, right? So the earlier there was theological ideas, deal with theology, mythology, religion, etc. But now there are new ideas. Then there are idea of republicanism and democratic ideas. So liberty, the idea of a republic, the the notion of freedom. These ideas little take heat, right? Then there's the era of Reformation, the 16th century, and there's a critical style of humanist thought, and there are several important effects, right? So first is like the establishment of the churches, right, in these countries as counter reformation to the Catholic churches. There was the press was there, and the Bible was translated, and it was propagated in even vernacular different languages, not just in Latin. And basically, the idea of community of individuals with direct relationship to God, in contrast to institutional hierarchy mediated relation, ideological ground for the mass of equals. So basically, earlier what was used to be there, that communities were there. Communities will have something like church, and the church will have the direct relation with God. And so the whole idea of the formation of institution was in a theological way, but now ideological ground for society of equals, means all men are equal. The concepts of liberty, fraternity, and these concepts take heed, right? So what's here? So Reformation, factionalism fighting between Protestants and the Catholics, end of war between Catholics and Protestants, Treaty of Westphalia, broke the working power of the Holy River, nation state in a position to define a religion in the land. This is the most important thing. After the period of Reformation took place, nation states came into existence, right? Then there was the era of Enlightenment, that, and these were these important philosophers like Bacon, we have Descartes, we have Locke, and obviously we'll study about them. Obviously Newton and Voltaire and Immanuel Kant, who has significant things in philosophy and all. So they argued that human reason and science is the main thing, right? Human are is rational, and human rationality is very important. And they were obviously against superstition. They were against tradition. So they were proponents of rationality, and they basically criticized. tradition. They criticized superstition. So the emphasis was that the world should be run rationally, critically, and rationality will become the stepping stone for progress, for social improvement. After Reformation and these things, Enlightenment take place, and ideas was of Bacon, Descartes, Immanuel Kant, Voltaire, Locke. These then the era of Romanticism, where thinkers like Rossi, and Goethe, these Goethe, so these thinkers were there. They basically celebrated authenticity of emotion. So earlier the emphasis was more only on rationality, human rational, human is logical, but now there's also put important focus on emotions. Emotions are very important. The beauty of nature, individual imagination, artistic geniuses. So art was emphasized, emotions were not something branded, these are bad things. Beauty and sacredity of nature was emphasized. These were things. So obviously, if you think about these things, so you will obviously have interest in reviving languages, because languages is like the expression of thought, expression of imagination. Obviously, you want to revive culture. You want to revive all the folk arts, because it is like reviving the emotions, the imagination of people. And obviously they were critical of aristocratic values. So the age of, if you see, the age of enlightenment, they were critical, but they were critical of what? They were critical of superstition and tradition, right? And they were for rationality in enlightenment age. In romanticism, what is happening? They are proponent of emotion, of imagination, thought, and they're critical of aristocratic values. Very important Treaty of Westphalia after these all these wars between Protestant and Protestant Catholics. So it established state sovereignty. So this was very important. Why? Because the notion of nation state, although nation state concept came later, but the foundation was here, that the concept of that the state is itself sovereign. A lot of its groundwork was there in Treaty of Westphalia, and the idea of religious tolerance, the idea of a secular state, these also pick up ground here, right? Then there was, after romanticism, right, there was the industrial revolution, and industrial revolution revolutionized the economic system of the world, because now things could be manufactured more cheaply on scale. So the economy like boomed like anything. And obviously in an industrial revolution, factory is a very important thing. And to establish factory, you need two things. One is capital, other is land, the other is labor. And from capital, the whole idea of capitalist got into that they own these factories, and labor, they sell their the workers sell their labor for some money to the capitalist who produce and own the factory or the means of production. So assembly like production, where each person is like a nut in a whole machine. Every person is like that. He has a mechanized work, repetitive work. The factory is mechanized. There is a rise of a working class. Although the rise of middle class, affluent middle class, hasn't happened. And we talk about that the conditions were not very good for the workers. Right? Capital growth, because you need capital for establishing the means of production at this factory. And obviously you will sell all these goods in, obviously, in your own market, but also you will sell it in your colony. So obviously there was thing that you need more profit, more expansion, so you do colonization. So so the colonized countries will act as from where you will get your raw materials from where you can sell your finished goods also, and from you can get a lot of labor for cheap. So what are the rise of new classes, and what are their interests? So capitalists are the new class, right? And if you see there is a rise of merchants. So we're not calling it now at capitalism, although capitalism develops from here only, from the industrial revolution. Trade is rising because you are producing like anything, like, and you will obviously trade with, buy it, sell it, you will do all kind of these things. And wherever factories developed, obviously infrastructure supporting those factories will be there. And there was the formation of cities, large scale cities, industrial cities as we know it. They got developed, and these were the urban centers. And in the urban centers, people doing some little bit better work than repetitive works, and so they were the middle class. So urban middle class developed. The thing simultaneously happening because of the Gutenberg press. Now ideas can flow freely because of the press. Because before the printing press came into being, it was very difficult to like support propagate ideas. But now through books, this was the era where after the era of enlightenment, where the dissemination of knowledge is there. And obviously, if you need this industrial production, you need the trained workers, and they will be trained in the education system. So the modern industrial educational system that is obviously hasn't changed in the last 300 years, that came into existence then only because you need that kind of workforce. And there was a rise of educated class because it was now easier to give education, right? Because it has become cheaper, right? So these were all the implication of the industrial uh, revolution, and this created a working class. So what working class wanted? They want more stability. They want to like go into be part of a political machinery. They should also, and there should be some representation of this class in the decision making, right? And obviously when the press is there, people can have dissemination of knowledge is there, people can discuss about ideas. So obviously people will realize that hey, in this system, in this industrial system, all the money is taken by the merchants or the capitalist who owns the factory, right? And we the working class are feeling the brunt of it. So there was a despair against first the aristocracy and the monarchy. Like they are enjoying the fruits of our labor, and because these ideas can be flow freely. So there was the French Revolution, which overthrew this aristocratic monarchical system, and it established republic. It established this concept of state, that state is sovereign, and state will have some properties, and these properties are idealized in which principles? The idea of liberty, the idea of equality, the idea of fraternity among men. Obviously it is not so inclusive because as you see that the idea of equality is only limited to men, not extended to the woman, right? We will discuss about these things. This was Central Europe, and because French Revolution, there other countries are also feeling the same revolution. So it was followed by republican rebellions everywhere in the Europe and even in colonies, right? Uh, the idea of liberalism, democracy, republicanism, they influenced the initial phase of the nation building. So from state you go to the concept of nation. And in Western Europe, there was the integration of territories. And so before transformation was taking place, constitution came into existence, new ideologies came into existence, and imperial trade, global trade, industrialism and industrialization is taking place, capitalism is taking place. Uh, so this is the map, industry, Austria and all, Italy. So okay, so what was the second? This was the first wave of national building. The second wave was actually has to do something with the culture, right? It has to do something with culture. So there was a concept of this linguistic consolidation. What does it mean? So unification of uh, different languages. So obviously, what is the concept of nation? That nation is made up of community, and community has obviously has individuals. So all these individuals should have something in common. Should either they have common interests, but the main focus was on common culture, and a very important part of culture is language. So obviously, if you want single nation, you want consolidation of languages, unification of languages. So there was this thing of linguistic consolidation. So for example, in Germany, the different languages will be spoken, but focus will be on German language, and this was done, right? Stimulated partly by liberal revolution, which obviously happened in different part of Europe. For happening started with the French Revolution. Germany emerged as a nation state, and this new concept that emerged, the concept of nation state, that will go very far away. Right? This concept will be discussed very far away, and obviously we will discuss what's the meaning of nation state, right? Okay, so this is Austrian Empire, this is Ottoman Empire, this is Italy, this is Venice. Balkanization. So third wave of nation building in Europe. So obviously, what happened in Balkanization? That the control of the Balkans was fought over by the West by the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, East by the Ottoman Empire. So there was this is the eastern part, the Ottoman Empire, the Australian Empire. So all these empires were like fighting for this area. Ottoman Empire, the Russian Empire. The most important thing about it. Well, let's start Balkanization. Let's discuss what's the concept of nation, right? And importantly, the concept of nation states, because we are discussing three phases of nation states, right? So, nation state is a modern political organization. So, it emerged as a global form. So, and started obviously with Europe, and nationalism plays a very important role in nation, right? So, what's the so there's a difference between nation and state. So, nation is basically cultural definition that nation is cultural dissemination and all, while state is a demarcated territory for administration. Right? That's the different. That the definition of nation is given culturally, while the definition of state is given politically from the point of administration. Right. So this is very important. And in this globalized world in which we are living, nation the policies are on a national level, right? And nation enjoys sovereignty. Obviously, states have sovereignty, but from there only the idea of nation state, like this there. And we discussed like earlier that Machiavelli was like the contribution of Machiavelli was there. It played the role in like shaping our understanding of the state. So what was Machiavelli saying? That there should be a strong centralized state of civilized life, and the state should control the civilized life, right? The state should be strong. So Machiavelli was saying this, right? So after these all these phases of nationalism that happened in the Europe, the phase of anti-colonial nationalism, and obviously after that we will see the rising of new nationalism, new colonialism, and these things we will discuss also. But the phase of anti-colonial nationalism, it spread in non-European region, obviously because all the colonies are not in Europe. European nation are colonizer nations who colonized these countries like India and Africa, India, Asian countries. So nationalist struggle was there, and the idea of nation was also borrowed from there only, like from Europe only. That what is the notion of a nation? So, but there was an interesting thing that ethically like ethically same or homologous states were not. All the states were not homogenized, right? There was ethically diverse state also formed. For example, India is obviously an ethically diverse state, right? We have different ethnicity, languages, cultures, religion, whatever, right? Great diversity. So the territories were defined by geopolitics, specifically colonial geopolitics, as we know, like in India, how the border was defined and these things. Right? So, nation state is a global form that colonized people adopted and want adopted to the modern political thought. that was created in the West only. So, so this is after this the idea of new nationalism or new nationalism emerged like from 1960s onwards. So it emerged from here. So so was it true nationalism? There are critics that argue about these. That was it true nationalism or it's just regionalism at play, right? Is it resulting from this regional imbalance in economic development because the West is developed and the colonial and colonized countries are not developed, right? Defensive response to global political economic forces. So, and now the recent things that happened with the collapse of USR and the end of the era of Cold War, because in the 1950 to 1990 was the era of Cold War between the USR and the USA. And so the nationalist movements in these USR countries, which were part of USR, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Baltic states, Belarus, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Armenia. They was there, and like Czechoslovakia also split into two republics. There was Eastern and Western Europe. They were later unified after this 1990s thing, after 1990s, because was the collapse of USR. Because that was the so the Balkans have been in a state of violent transition with the collapse of former Yugoslavia. So, what are the pillars, important fundamental pillars of the modern state? The first is rationality, and the governance is secular. So, the state is secular. It has something called as structural differentiation, and we will discuss about this. That what does it mean? What is structural differentiation? It has its own rules and all, and also state can be coercive, and the coercion of the state is legitimatized because and this is the crux of what a sovereignty can do. That even if the state do coercion, it is legitimatized, right? And state has all the jurisdiction on the territory of the state, jurisdiction on whole territory of state, on whole territory of state, yeah, slash nation. The state is secular. It can do coercion that will legitimize, and it has complete jurisdiction on the whole territory of the state. Okay, I was saying that I will discuss about what's the meaning of structural differentiation. So let's be it's structural differentiation is obviously keeping in the context of how the emergence of modern state is emerged, and the modern state is a separation of different spheres of social life. So what's the historical context there? So obviously the idea of state evolved in early modern Europe, right? And then it disseminated globally because of colonialism, right? So so think in that terms, right? First thing. So what was there? That there was separation of church from the state, and this is basically what's the meaning of secular. That church is separated from the state, right? It will not interfere in the functioning of the state, like because of all these things, like the era of Reformation, Westphalia, the Treaty of Westphalia, and all. The church authority declined, right? And there was secularization of political authority, right? And beside this, what was happening? There was a rise of political economy, that capitalist political economy, which was just after the industrial revolution, because of industrial revolution. So because of this, there was independent sphere of economy, and production was shifted from. So earlier the system of production was what? The early system of production was it was feudal production. So there was feudal lots, and it was agriculture because the world was agriculture based, right? Agriculture market, right? So then the world shifted into what? The industrial production. So things change in the industrial production. How is change? Because now the different class, working class and all, right? And there was the whole rise of the space called civil society. It also emerged alongside because of the formation of this political capitalist economy, right? So what were they were thinking of the civil society as a space for civility, refinement of commerce. It's a limited role for state, right? So Marx says that the state is embedded with the civil society, and there was challenges to the sovereignty it caused. So all this thing that church is separate, civil society is separate, state is separate. This is basically what's the meaning of structure differentiation. So after this, we're going to discuss about colonization and imperialism, the era of imperialism. So in colonization, what happened? That there was economic drain. So resources they were transferred from countries like the Asian and African countries like India to the West, to specifically Europe, and there was rampant destruction because of colonization of the indigenous economic systems, their cultural system. So you can call it a ethno-cultural economic genocide of the colonized countries, which have to went through this. Their governance, their cultural practices, everything gone through destruction and like a genocide. I would call them, right? And colonized was colonialism, like it was given justification, right? It was referred to as white man's burden, that the West is civilized, they are proper men, they are different value, they are much more capable and all, and the rest of the world is not civilized. So it's a white man's burden. His job is to civilize. His job, the white man's job, is to civilize the rest of the world. That was the thing, civilize the non-West world, non-Western world. Okay, and so colonialism was given justification. Although the system was developed because of the industrial revolution, and modernization will be that the world should remodel itself in how Europe developed, right? So here comes we'll discuss more about Machiavelli. So Machiavelli obviously from is from Italy, right? So this is about his life, that he was a bureaucrat actually. Uh, so what he's saying. So here prince refers to the head of state. The head of state. The goal of the prince is honor, glory, and fame. It's meant for that. And fortune, what's fortune is saying? Fortune is the obstacle of achieving growth and how to overcome the being virtues. What is virtue? That Christian idea of clemency and pity. Right? You need to be like this. And Machiavelli is the ability to change himself to act differently according to the circumstance. What do you say? In this para, it is necessary for the prince to understand how to avail himself for the beast and the man. So a prince, therefore, being compelled knowingly to adapt the beast, how to choose fox and lion, the lion cannot defend himself. It is unnecessary for the prince to have all the good qualities, but it is necessary to appear to have them. And I shall dare to say this also, that to have them and always to observe them is injurious, and to appear to have them is useful, to appear merciful, faithful, humane, religious, upright, and to be with a mind so framed that you should also require not to, you may be able to know how to change the opposite, right? This is the thing he is talking about. So he given a good idea of republic, right? So we were discussing it. The idea of individual liberty is best preserved in the republican form of the government and of a principality. So liberty is like one's own possession and a family life. Essential to liberty was a civic virtue, right? And the mark of civilization was not nobility or wealth, but it is common good.